I have just spent 50 hours fixing Minecraft's worst structure, the dungeon.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, this project took way longer than I originally expected. This video was supposed to be out Wednesday, but I got carried away. So, in this video, I built I didn't build Minecraft's biggest dungeon, but I upgraded the current dungeon, because it sucks. So we improved it a bunch, and my sanity is gone too, but it'll be worth it, because the build actually came out looking super cool, and I'm really happy with it. So instead of doing another really long intro, let's just hop straight into the build. Go.
Okay, to start off, we lay out our general shape using just some basic stone rectangles, and then we use some black and yellow concrete powder to measure the distances and to make sure we get everything centered and correct. So I start by laying out some bigger shapes in some main hallways, and then moving on to some smaller dungeons, which I then copy and paste all over everywhere and add some extra little details as needed. But the floor is a main issue because it's the biggest thing in all of these builds, and the roof. But the roof we can focus on later. The floor right now is massive and I want it detailed, so the thing I had to do was I had to make these rocks that you see. They're very similar to the ones on the Hypixel lobby, if you ever paid attention to the floor on the Hypixel lobby for some reason. But they're very similar to that, and we also use some moss and tuff to show this wear and tear on it, to make it more realistic and to make it a lot more similar to just Minecraft dungeons in general with their wear and tear, because obviously cobblestone and mossy cobblestone are not blocks you use to show something is brand new. They're very old and run down, so we want to give a similar vibe, and these rocks sort of emulate like a bigger cobblestone, like these massive boulders stuck together and cobbled together. Cobblestone, if you will, just on a larger scale. And then another detail I try to add here is I use waterlogged stairs along the edges of these hallways, because dungeons are made with lots of mossy cobblestone, and moss needs water to grow, and that's one of the things I don't really like about the dungeon, is it doesn't have a reason why there's moss there. There's just no water or no way for the moss to grow, and it's deep underground, usually in an enclosed space. So in this one I want to try and fix that by adding some water to show how these things grow. Of course there's no sunlight, which is another thing, but that's unimportant. Now for the biggest build we're going to do, it's going to be a maze, so I start by laying it out with red wool to get the general shape in and to make sure I know where the path is going to be, and then I add a bunch of little detours to throw people off. You could see me in the bottom corner making 3 designs for walls that I'm going to copy and paste everywhere, and this is to speed up the process and just put them along the red lines that I already have. Instead of having to build up all the walls by hand, which would take ages, this is just a faster method of doing it. Of course, because I'm an idiot and haven't used Litematica like this before, I make a really stupid mistake. And to explain it, there's 2 different types of pasting you can use in Litematica. One is where you replace everything, and another is where you replace only air. So for this first section, I replace everything, and it works perfectly. It gets rid of the red wool, and you can see these things, and the only thing I need to do is go back and do the smaller sections. But for the second round of going through, which I don't really show because you can't see it because there's a roof over it, I try to go over it using the one that just replaces it with air, so I leave all the red wool in there, and when I do that, I do it when there's a roof over it. The issue is then I need to go back through the maze that I've just built and look for red wool, and I kept getting lost in my own maze, which is kind of funny because it shows the maze was really good, but also was really annoying. Okay, now we're moving on to the hallway, so I use a pretty simple repetitive design, and then we use the same walls we used previously. Now I did forget to record for there, so the build just popped in, but it's to sort of combine dungeons with trail ruins and using that mud and prismarine to bring a little bit of pop of color, because dungeons are really gray and boring, and so I wanted to change that up, and adding some mud and prismarine felt like a really cool way. You could also see me adding that leafy roof, and that's because when I envision this in my head, I envision these massive structures, or sort of like almost reaching out of the ground, and so they would have dirt and then the roots or leaves seeping through, and that's why you have that type of roof, or at least that's how it looks in my head. Now for this next room we start changing it up. I'm using a different color of stone. Wow, very cool, I know. But because this room isn't as big, I add like its own roof so it looks structural and supported. but I still do give it like a bit of a ruined feel, and it comes out looking pretty cool. The room's main purpose is for parkour, because in Minecraft, despite parkour being really popular, it's not actually a feature Minecraft focuses on, so it's something I wanted to bring in. And now we added another hallway leading into the final main room in like the progression. So all these are the rooms you need to go to get to like the big prize. So I wanted to change this one up a little bit and add some of that water I was talking about earlier to sort of show where all these leaves and greenery came from. So we do another really cool leafy ceiling, and then I add a little bit of a reward at the end, because dungeon rewards suck, but also because this dungeon is a lot harder, and I wanted to have a bigger reward. One thing you can see me doing, well no you can't, because I have night vision triggered right now, is I've tried to play with light. When making this build, I try to use soul lanterns and candles to change things up, to make things a little darker, dimmer, and only using mainly glow lichen to highlight things. And while it does make things harder to like build with, it does end up coming out really cool and giving it that dark dungeony kind of vibe that I was going for. And now we're moving into our small little offshoots or distractions. So we have the main builds that you have to go through, but then I want these to be sort of like things that are like, oh wait, am I supposed to go over here? And they like sort of pull you away and have their own little challenges, but they're not nearly as big or impressive. It's kind of similar to in the Stronghold, all those extra rooms, like other than the library and the portal, like all those extra rooms that pull you away from finding it. That's what these are supposed to be, is these just distraction rooms. So I build it up using a similar hallway design, and then these smaller rooms, and throw like 1 to 4 spawners in them. Yeah, and then we use that same dim lighting using candles and soul lanterns. And then I copy what I've just built over into 2 different places. And now we're heading into a bigger, but still smaller than all the other big rooms that I've made. So this one has a floor pattern that looks sort of structural and supported, because it wouldn't be as big and need like the cobbled together floors, or at least in my head it wouldn't. And because this is the farthest offshoot in this section, like this is as far as way you can get from where you need to go, I wanted to build a vault with some rewards for people who made it that far. And now we're moving into our final room, and I wanted to honor the spider dungeon and like just spider things in general, so I had some cobwebs. Okay, and now we're moving on to the outside. I know dungeons are just underground, but dungeons suck, and we're improving them in this video, so we're adding our own entrance, and it starts off looking like a stone Power Ranger, and we even make it worse by adding these blue little spikes, but it's okay, because it comes out looking pretty cool. So what we do is we add some moss and leaves to sort of ruin it and make it look aged and fit with the jungle going on around it. And then I mine out a small little section. Well, not a small. This took forever. I had to use TNT to speed it up, and even then I had to mine it with my fist, and it took super long. And I don't know how many people know this, but mining in creative is ridiculously slow. It's actually faster to use a haste beacon, but I didn't know this. And so I spent way too long doing this, but it's okay. We add our pattern to the floor and build up the walls and add a roof. Again, with the leafy vibe going on, it comes out looking pretty cool. And then we add our texturing onto the walls, and it's looking really nice. I need to figure out something else to say. Now we're moving on to our stone ledge, to sort of bridge the gap between the dirt and the stone, and then we add our lighting with our structural supports around it, and then down here, I wanted to bring you into first person because we're going to change things up a little bit. So I'm pasting in the structure right now, and it's the paste that replaces everything that I was talking about earlier. So that's why there's all those air gaps now. So I bring it out here close to the front, and now I'm running around checking to make sure everything's loaded in because it's a massive structure. So this is me just checking to make sure chunks are loaded. But you can see a really big issue that happened, and that's that these buildings are so massive they're peeping through the top, and so I need to cover them up. And so what I do is I build this river using coarse dirt around it and adding some vegetation around the edges to sort of show where the river popped through, even some lily pads, and then some trees.
Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I had a blast creating it. If you really enjoyed the content, please give a like and subscribe as it helps out the channel a ton. And if you leave a comment down below, that would be much appreciated as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys would like to see more videos like this in the future, please let me know. I did a previous transformation a couple weeks ago and people seemed to really like it, so I made this video. If that people still really like it, I'll make another one. Also, I might be joining a new SMP soon. Who knows? We'll see what happens. Anyways, see you guys in the next video. Epic outro thing. Go!